So a common question I see in the Scrum forums is, where is the project manager in Scrum? So a similar question, where is project management, program management in SAFe?
Let me just back up a little bit, and we shared an experience this morning with an organization that is fairly traditionally silo structured. I drew the silos up there, and there was architecture, and there was business silos, and there was a security silo, and there was a deployment, and there was IT service management, and all the silos, people working together. Now, we use silo in a pejorative sense because that's the word we use to describe the thing that doesn't work very well. There are reasons they exist, but value doesn't flow that way. So nobody buys our architecture or a great set. I've got a great set of user stories. You know? Here's a few pounds for the user stories. So value flows across silos. So if you look at something like the PMI with 400,000 certified PMI people, what are they doing? They're engaged in helping work move across organizational silos. Well, if the silos weren't there, do I need people to hand that baton from each silo to the next? And the answer is no. And if you think about a project in terms of a traditional thing, it's temporary work for temporary people.
Yeah.
Well, how do you engage long-lived knowledge growth in an organization that just forms and drops projects, So the project metaphor doesn't really appear and doesn't really work for us. Having said that, some of the people that know how to get things done in this organization are project managers, and they typically evolve into a lot of roles. A lot of them make good Scrum Masters, some don't. Some project managers have been close enough to the customer in their domain. For example, you might, in communications, for example, a project manager is dealing directly with the customer every day. So they become very adept at understanding the customer's need set. They might evolve into product owners. Some are traditional program managers, get agile to move into release train engineer. So they typically get repurposed. In a really large program, a few fairly traditional project managers will remain if it's a really big program, because there's a lot of interstitial stuff you need, who can get a room at the Holiday Inn to do release planning in? So a few remain. But for those that believe that their responsibility is to move a batch of work from one silo to the next, their responsibilities don't remain. So they've got to be repurposed into other areas and find new work. And if not, they're going to need to work in an industry where traditional project management still applies, because it doesn't apply so much in Agile.
And I see a lot of organisations still want to map the old world to the new world of SAFe, and they almost trying to do that model mapping.
Yep.
And one of the common questions I always get asked is, so an epic, is that a project team?
No, an epic's an epic. Okay, an epic is a container for a large initiative. You can call it whatever you want. We call it an epic for a reason, because any other word that we used, project or program, has its own connotation. Right. If it's a project, we have a definition for that. Right. There's a PMI definition for that. If it's a program, that's a multiple project initiative, and it needs to look like this. If you call it an epic, nobody knows what it is. Then you say it's a big initiative. It's gonna create a lot of value, and we talk about it differently. And as of the next release in SAFe, we're going to talk about what's the hypothesis for that epic, and that word changes everything. Because if just a couple weeks ago, I was with the CIO of one of the world's largest cable companies, and he said, this framework stuff is all well and good. I don't really care how those folks do their work, so long as I get what I want when we say we're going to need it, and I know what the price is going to be in advance. Very traditional view. And I said, well, let's talk about an initiative. And he named one. I said, what's the hypothesis for that? And he goes, well, what do you mean? Well, what do you believe the business outcome will be if you do that? Well, blah, 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 blah. Okay. And then I said, how would we test that? What's the minimum amount of work we would do and the minimum spend we would put forward to prove the hypothesis? And he was thinking differently now. So, well, we could do manual data collection over here, or we could, we take the old cable boxes and we hack them up, right? We put a bolt on the side with some extra firmware on them. There's lots of ways to approach the problem. So he started thinking about that, and I said, well, if we're thinking about it that way, you don't want to fund the full epic, do you? We haven't even proved any of it works yet. So let's not put a number on that big thing, because it might be more or less than you need. Let's just take the MVP and work that through the system. And by the way, if we get some value out of that, there's always more we could do. But what if some other cool thing comes along? So long as at the program backlog level we use, weighted shortest job first, kind of relative prioritizing, we don't have to worry about when the epic has achieved its maximum economic value, because that will happen automatically at the program backlog level. So an epic is a way to think differently about the problem. It's a way to challenge the assumptions that you know what it's going to do. It's a thing you can attach a hypothesis to, and it's a thing that you don't necessarily know the full ROI, and you also need to make the full financial commitment to. It's just a different way of thinking about work.
I'm moving back to the Scrum world. So if a team is using Scrum at the team level in SAFe, I know that the new releases got much more alignment with the Scrum terminology. But are there?
We did fix some of that.
Yeah. And that was good. Are there any other variances to Scrum in a SAFe world?
Well, let me take that directly. Okay. What is Scrum? What's it optimized for? You tell me.
Fast feedback loops.
Yeah, it's project management, lightweight project management with fast feedback. What's XP optimized for?
Technical practices, best technical practices.
Right. What's Kanban optimized for?
Flow.
Okay, so which of these do you not need? Trapped.
Yeah.
Okay, so the basic Scrum model, which I have a great respect for, and a couple reasons. Number one, it's the first time we've seen a PDCA cycle really described as a PDCA cycle. It's the first time I've known what a team was.
Yeah.
It's not 16 people, and it's not 6 testers. That's not a team. Product owner responsibility, Scrum Master, kind of the servant leader for the team. Those are brilliant, but that's what it is. You can take 5 Scrum courses, never see a line of code. You take an XP course, you're going to be doing test-driven development, right? You're going to be splitting stories. You're going to use user stories because they come with XP. You do both of those, and you still can't see the work. So you surface the work with Kanban, all of a sudden there's a story, the story gets split, it has a life cycle, it runs through the Kanban board. Oh, there's too many stories right now. Right now we have too many stories backed up for a tech editor. There's a bottleneck. So just yesterday, literally, we said, you know what? Some of these articles could be tech edited in a second pass. Right. Because the bottleneck was there, we made a different decision. We did, okay, we'll skip that here. We wrote the articles, they're decent articles. They need tech editing, but they don't need it instantly, and we have a bottleneck. Well, if you can't see that, all you know is that your articles aren't flowing. So it's not Scrum is bad or good, or XP is bad or good, or Lean Thinking or Kanban is bad or good. It's that you need all that stuff. This is the year 2017. Do we really think we can't say Kanban in a Scrum class? We think you can, and what's more, we think you have to. So our course is safe for teams, and we tried Scrum XP Bond for a while, and we got laughed out of the room, but that's what it is. It's Scrum with flow and good solid technical practices, because you have to do it all.
Excellent.
And then the other thing that's different about that is that systems thinking. 7 great Scrum teams operating independently is a pretty cool thing, but it's also entropy. And they will do what the only thing they can do, they will optimize their own team performance. Optimizing a component of a system does not optimize the system. So 7 teams working together might have sub-optimizations for any one team. I might need to borrow a person to help me a little bit. I might need to have everybody student body left in test. I might need to make some other decisions. And I can't do that if my team boundary is fixed. If those teams coordinate and cooperate, even that team boundary, long-lived, well-formed, long-lived Scrum teams? Yeah, kinda. But what if I needed a slightly different? What if I needed 2 Scrum teams to work on the same feature for a while? Yeah. We should have the flexibility to do that. So the methods and tools that we give the teams, and managers' jobs, create an environment where they can do that, to not throw a fit that that you're doing it this way and that way, and how many. You shouldn't give any credit for a story at the end of a sprint if the story doesn't have its acceptance test signed off. We got to be a little smarter than that, and we got to really understand how work flows, what quality looks like, what done needs to look like, and then if you get that stuff out of the way, you can use your brains to work on the hard stuff, the content, the real issues, rather than what's my process like. So we embrace Scrum, but we also extend it, because we need teams to work together. We need them good technical practice, architectural runway. I think one of the challenges with Scrum at the team level is the sprint is a thing a team does. We need the sprint to be a thing that the system does, right? The whole point is that the system is sprinting, not the team. In order to do that, that requires intense collaboration. Well, I can't just be all heads down supporting my 4 teammates and nobody wants to support the demo. So we've got a bigger problem to solve, and we need more tools to do that.
And if we are just doing pure Kanban, and we're working on an iteration, how does that work in SAFe?
So my team runs a hybrid model, and we're right now in our model. We do plan frequently, typically at a 2-week boundary, not always. We do a system demo religiously every 2 weeks because we're part of the larger system, part of the art that does that. But we have a Google spreadsheet Kanban board. So we do not know that as of next Thursday we're going to clean that Kanban board out. We don't really care. We're going to have some stories in flight. We know what a definition of done is. So we have a continuous flowing process. Every 2 weeks we integrate with everybody else.
Right.
So a team can run pure Kanban if they want. Now they're going to have to occasionally reload their backlog, right? Well, you might want to do that on a 2-week boundary. You might want to do it when you run out. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that we manage the dependencies with other teams. We do have to have a sense of velocity. We can't just sit here and say they're running Kanban, so you'll get what you get. We have to have some way to predict the future to a certain degree. So a few constraints. You got to participate in the system demo. You attend PI planning. I mean, who wouldn't want to be at that? So I just think it's, in a sense, it's an argument that we make mountains over, and it really should be a molehill. And SAFe doesn't care. SAFe does care about cadence and synchronization. Yeah. I think everybody that's scaled Kanban to any degree has had to add cadence and synchronization. 11 teams doing Kanban, and the product manager's doing Kanban, and there's no synchronization point, it doesn't really work. So as long as you apply cadence and synchronization, I think the only inviolate rule is got to be a system demo every 2 weeks. If you have a system demo every 2 weeks, everything else is going to fall into place.
Back to, it's all about the system.
Yep, it is. It's making the system increments. When the system is incrementing, you're doing agile development. And if it isn't, I don't care how much training you've had in Scrum or XP or Kanban, you're not doing incremental development.
Perfect.
The goal is to build a system in small increments. They deliver value more quickly. And the integral of all of those values being present for a long period of time is the basic economics of agile development.